Everybody. So I hope you all had a nice holiday over the weekend. Happy Passover. And, I went out with my family yesterday for dinner, and it was an early dinner, and we had not so great of an experience. So I'm going to share about that. We went to this restaurant, and we asked to be seated in a quiet space away from kids. And when we got in there, it was like 4:00 in the afternoon, and there was plenty of open space, lots of space to choose any table. And the waitress said, "Where would you like to sit?" And I said, "This sounds great, right here." So we sit down at this table, booth, far away, and there's nobody else seated next to us. So now we're ordering our coffee, drinks, and the waitress forgets about us. There's a long delay. Then we get another waitress who says that she's our waitress because the other waitress is not able to assist us anymore. And so we have a new waitress, and then we place our order, and we place not only an order for the entrees for dinner sitting in the restaurant at the table, but then also for carry out so that we would have that prepared so that we could take that with us. So bottom line, we're sitting there waiting for our food, and another table gets set right behind us. So here's our booth, and another table is the booth is right behind us, and there's a kid in the booth, and the kid is kicking and doing this to the booth the whole time. And so I'm sitting in the booth getting my head, like neck, move like this the whole time because he keeps shaking the booth, and my mom as well. So I turn around, I address the woman, and I said, "Excuse me, is this your child?" I said, "Would you please move him to the other side of the booth so that whatever kicking he does, there's nobody behind on that side of the booth. There's an empty walkway. Then that way no one else gets distracted or is jolted in their seat while we're trying to eat," because we had already had our food arrive by this point. And she's like, "I'm not moving my son, and he has autism, and you're just going to have to deal with it." And I said, "Ma'am, I'm asking you nicely to please discipline your child and move him to another seat so that he is not ruining our experience." And now one of the people sitting at the table gets their camera, and they start to get in my face, and it's just starting to get ugly. So I waited for the waitress to come back, and I said I wanted to speak to a manager. So I explained the situation to this female manager, who then has no power, who then says, "Oh, I have to go to the other manager." I'm like, "I said I wanted to speak to the manager." So by this point, we've finally eaten our food. The whole time, my neck is doing this because the kid is banging on the chair and the seat the entire time. And, we're not having a pleasant experience. We can't really even concentrate on the conversation because the kid is like wailing and making noise. And the sad situation is the kid is the victim. The parents don't give a crap about their own kid, nor are they disciplining him. They're not cuddling him. He has no toys. There are no video games or a stuffed animal or a coloring book. There's none of that. This kid is literally having a meltdown, but there's nothing to soothe him, and the parents are doing nothing. And all the other adults, 8 adults sitting at the table, are not dealing with this child. Okay. So bottom line, finally a male manager comes over, and he says, "What's the problem?" And I recap the story, and I said, "Look," I said, "I'm asking at this point for financial compensation due to the fact that we've been ignored the entire time that I've asked for a manager to come to the table and address this issue. You're now finally coming to address the issue, but we've already eaten. This is now a moot point. We're waiting for our carry out, and we would like to leave. We'd like to pay our bill and leave." And I said, "But this other customer and their child, as you can see, is out of control. This has been what I've been experiencing. My mom and my friend has been experiencing the whole time of our meal, and that's not a pleasant experience." And then he goes on to talk about how, they have to protect children with disabilities, and he doesn't want to start a ruckus. I said, "So you're ready to start a ruckus with me because I'm addressing the problem, but you're going to let that table sit there and continue to disrupt the next customer because they're still there and they haven't gotten their meal yet, but you're going to place another person here at this table for this whole thing to start all over again?" I'm like, that doesn't seem like very good management of the environment or of your staff. And so anyway, I made the request, and he started to say, and I said, look, I have a social media following, and I am going to probably talk about this on my social media following. And I said, because it needs to be addressed. This is like a ongoing problem. Like, people there needs to be a level of standards. You go to a restaurant, these are the rules. These are the rules that we have in this restaurant, and this is what we adhere to. If you are disruptive, you need to move or you need to leave. If you're a parent and you can't control your child, you shouldn't be coming to a restaurant so that you can disrupt everybody else in the restaurant. That's not good for business. It's not good for morale, and it's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths, and they're not going to come back to support the restaurant when they have a negative experience. And I said, and this is my first time here to this restaurant. And I said, and it's not a pleasant experience. And I said, and I am gonna talk about it, because I am. And I said, but I'm asking for you to resolve the situation as best as you can. So he then says that he is able to pay for the bill, 100% pay for the bill. And so we waited for our carryout. I paid a cash tip, and we left. Now, here's the point. Am I grateful that that manager resolved the situation financially? And I'm going to say, in terms of financially, he did resolve the situation. But emotionally, and from a managerial position, he did not solve the problem. He never addressed the customer. He never addressed the unruly kid. He never addressed the problem. He continued to allow the problem to keep going on and keep disrupting the entire restaurant. That's not dealing with the problem. That's playing ostrich. That's letting the problem keep fester. And that's why that kid is unruly, because he doesn't know what consequences are. I don't care if you're autistic or you're, quote, normal. There's a thing called discipline. And when you act out, you need to be disciplined, because God our Father disciplines us when we are unruly and when we're disobedient, and when we realize, oh yeah, that's not good. I don't want to have that same kind of experience. Then we're going to be obedient. We're going to learn how to self-correct. But if you're a parent and you're making excuses for your son's disability or your son's autism, and you're not coming to a restaurant prepared with coloring books and stuffed animals and some kind of soothing tasks or games that your kid can play when he's in a restaurant totally not happy, I'm like, that's your fault. It's the parent's fault. And the other victim in this situation is not just me, my mom, and my mom's friend having dinner. It's the kid. The kid is being poorly treated. So that's my take on this. I'm sure that there'll be weird comments about autism and kids with disabilities and what have you, and whatever, okay? The reality is, in today's day and age, I don't go out to dinner very often. I like to cook food at home. But when I do go out for a special occasion or to spend time with friends and family, I'd like to have an enjoyable experience. And I don't think an enjoyable experience is being kicked and jolted in your seat the whole time you're trying to lift up your fork and your head is going like this. That's not an enjoyable experience for any person. And to subject somebody through that, and for that person to get all racial on me and make it about black and white, is also very inappropriate. It wasn't, I don't have a problem with the color of your skin. I have a problem with the way that you're disciplining your child. I have a problem with the way that you are subjecting me and my family to unnecessary jolting of our head and neck because you refuse to discipline your child. I mean, it's as simple as that. What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear them. Have a good one.